Welcome to Ask the Attorney, brought to you by the Law Office of Chris Doscotch.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Stacey Campbell and this is Ask the Attorney. As always, it's an opportunity for you to call in and ask questions. The number to call is 698-3742. You can begin calling right now. Our attorney this evening is Chris Doscotch, a personal injury lawyer with a practice on North Knoxville. Hello, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing? Good to see you again.
Good, yeah. So you've been here many times and you always come with lots of great information to share with our viewers.
I tried to.
Yeah, you do a really good job.
And a new set here that looks
And
great.
you haven't been here yet, so it's a little different look, yes. So lots of great information. And tonight, we're going to get right into it because you want to talk about workers' compensation,
Right.
which you handle workers' comp cases. And there is a bill on the table that is going to do something that you don't think is good. So tell me what that is.
Well, there's bills on the table constantly, and this has been a never-ending theme, so every show I kind of try and touch on what's going on. Right now, there's a bill that's been proposed by mainly the governor and Chamber of Commerce to reduce attorney's fees to 15%.
Which means, first of all, when there is a settlement reached and the attorney is compensated, you're only going to get 15% of the settlement,
We don't
right?
charge anything unless there's a recovery. It's contingency fee. In workers' compensation, it's 20%. Personal injury, it's 1/3.
Okay.
So it's 20%. That's been the law since I've been a lawyer in 1994 and before. So they proposed to reduce it to 15%, where most people are like, well, if I get more money and my lawyer gets less, that's great.
Good.
Yeah.
But maybe not so good, and why is that?
Right. Well, they're never going to come out and say we're passing and changing laws to take your rights away. So if they can reduce access to medical care by reducing costs for what doctors get reimbursed, they won't want to deal with work comp. If you take a lawyer and you reduce the fee by 25%, the settlements and awards are based on how much people make also. So in essence, that's going to disenfranchise people who are making lower earnings.
Okay.
So if you're only making $10 or $12 an hour, at some point, if they keep reducing the fee, how can a lawyer go into a case? Now they're disputing it. You're taking depositions. I'm driving to St. Louis and Chicago, trying the case and going on appeal, and you're reducing the fee. So what happens is a lot of lawyers, well, if you don't make a certain amount of money, I'm not even going to take your case.
So you say fewer and fewer lawyers will take workers' comp cases if this bill is passed.
Right, and then what would a person do if the case is denied? They wouldn't have any recourse, because if it wasn't for the lawyers or attorneys or our ability to do that, then you don't have that type of check. So you're going to take, and that's the majority of cases. I mean, most cases are lower fee, smaller, you know, standard case. They're not all, I mean, it's not the perception that they're all this huge cases. So you would take so for example, it used to be about 60,000 cases. Since they changed the law in 11, we're down to probably about 30,000 filed cases now.
Oh, wow.
So it's really had an effect on the number of cases that are reported. This would take that number down even further.
Okay.
And so it's an effort to try and reduce access to legal representation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you can call if you have a workers' comp question. The number to call is 698-3742. So call us right now. So you touched on it a little bit, but I want to be clear. You were saying that if this bill passes, where they lower the attorney fees to 15%, it will affect the workers that make the least amount of money. And why is that?
Because settlements are based upon, part of the formula is how much you make.
Okay.
So if your multiplier is 60% of $10 an hour, $250 a week rather than $500, it's going to affect the amount of the recovery at the end of the case. And as good-hearted as many of the lawyers are that do this, at some point you can't keep pursuing cases that are disputed.
Well, it's just not good business sense.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Right, but it comes out as we're saving you money and putting more money in your pocket, but really it's a backhanded attempt at reducing access to legal representation because they know that's going to be the net effect. So they don't have the publicity of saying we're reducing your access to lawyer care, we're cutting lawyer fees.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of how they're branding what is trying to go on.
And workers' comp cases are so complicated, and the laws that govern it are so complicated. So that's why it's so important to have an attorney that can advocate for you, just to make sense of all this.
And more and more cases are disputed now.
Yeah.
And so the more cases that are disputed, the more you need a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of so that's why I wanted to talk about how important it is, A, to get representation now, and B, that you got to look at beyond the blurbs or the headlines or the banner line and look at really what's going on.
Yeah, and again, and we do have a question that we're going to get to here, but real quick, it doesn't cost anything to call you.
Correct.
Or to come in and talk with you to find out if you have a case.
Correct.
So
free consultations, no fee unless there's a recovery.
Yeah. All right, here's a question. This is Dave in Pekin who says, I have an injury to my shoulder. Work comp is making me go to St. Louis. Can they make me do that?
This would be probably in the top 10 hit list of questions from people complaining about what they have to do. In work comp, you are required to see a doctor at the choice of the employer or their insurance company. There's not a lot of doctors around here that do it. I have never found a judge in 20 years, absent some medical reason that prevents you from traveling, where they will say you don't have to go to St. Louis, you don't have to go to Chicago. So they pay your mileage, they'll pay for your day's wages if you miss work to attend, but if you don't go to that appointment, you run the risk of then not getting any benefits for not cooperating with the insurance company, because it is a requirement to attend those appointments.
Okay. Here's another question that you say you get a lot at the office, that they're off on workers' comp, their employer's making them pay their portion of the health insurance. Can they make them do that?
Right, and that's a question, you know, since starting to do this show, I've started, it's every 3 months, keeping track kind of common questions or themes or things that are going on, and this would be a very common question. So one of our major employers in this area, when they're injured, they have to pay their portion of the premium. Some employers can pay it and just pay it. Some can pay it and request reimbursement when you get back. All they're required to do, at least during the FMLA period, is offer you your insurance back. But they can, and if you don't pay for your insurance, and this has happened to a client of mine recently where they didn't and they lost it, you're losing your access to your health care until you start again or you apply for something else. So you got to make sure that payment is sent in. And if you have questions, call your human resources department, call your lawyer. We could find that out because it's really important.
This is a question from Linda. She says, I reported a work injury. The ER made me get a drug test. I did it, but did I have to?
No, unless, I mean, there are some, and first, obviously, there's some jobs that require it. Truck driver, you're operating a train, a plane, anything involving public safety or transportation, you're going to have to. Then some people have to as a part of their condition of their employment. They have a union contract where they agree to do it, or when they go to work somewhere, they agree to drug testing if they report an injury. So the Work Comp Act does not require you to go do a drug test. So if there is a requirement for it, it's some other law or some other condition or contract of employment. And so you still don't have to do it. You have free will. But if you don't do it and your employer requires it, and or it's in a contract, you can be terminated for not abiding by those terms. It doesn't mean you won't have a comp case, but it could jeopardize your employment. So that question would depend on what the rules are at the place of employment.
We have time for one more question before we take a break. This is from Kelly. She was hurt, and her, Kelly is a he, was hurt, and his employer wants him to use FMLA or accrued vacation before work comp time. Is that legal?
Okay, and FMLA was a law intended to give people protection, but it also could be used as a sword because they could say 12 weeks, that's all you get. So 12 weeks is FMLA. If you meet certain hour requirements, it's like $1,200 a year, and the employer has so many employees. The employer is allowed to run FMLA concurrent with workers' compensation. But again, you need to look at your employee handbook dealing with that right now and what your leave policies are. And then the employer needs to treat everybody the same. So if you get fired after 12 weeks for FMLA while you're on comp, that better be going on with all the people that don't have work comp, because you can't say, well, work comp people get fired after their FMLA expires and then non-occupational don't. But the employer is allowed to do that. Most people think they can't, but they can.
But they can. Okay, good stuff. This is the person you need to call if you have a workers' comp question. It's time for us to take a break, but we are going to be back with more of your questions for Chris Doscotch coming up.
At Doscotch Law, we believe it is important to meet with your lawyer face-to-face. We also know that it is not always possible. We now offer Skype service so that we can meet with our clients anytime, even after business hours. It is really the next best thing to being there. My office uses technology to better communicate, meet your needs, and value your time. The client is our #1 priority. Visit doscotchlaw.com to schedule your appointment.
With the changes to worker compensation laws, payouts are lower and medical payments are down. Illinois is spending less on medical expenses than surrounding states, but has the highest premiums.
Workers' compensation is intended to protect worker safety and provide financial support. Insurance company profits are higher, with less benefits being paid to workers.
You need a proactive lawyer so your claim is not lost. Chris Doscotch will give you the response you expect and the results you deserve.
Welcome back. This is Ask the Attorney. I am Stacey Campbell. This is Chris Doscotch. He has been practicing law here in Peoria for 22 years, and he's here to answer your questions. So give us a call right now if you want to, 698-3742. We've been talking about workers' comp. We're going to switch gears. Premises liability. You practice, or these? Yeah, that's what you say. What is it exactly?
Premises liability is where you fall, get injured, something lands on you, some type of injury on somebody else, not your own property, somebody else's property.
Okay.
And so, well,
but just because you fall, whether on a residential property or a store, just because you fall doesn't mean you have a case, right?
Correct. And a lot of lawyers don't even take premises liability because I think they're the hardest area of, or one of the hardest areas of personal injury. And I would say 80% of the people that come in believe if you fall on someone's property, they're responsible for medical bills, your injury, and everything. And that is not, that's the exact reverse. It doesn't work that way.
What are they responsible for then?
Well, as you can see on the graphic that they have up there is they are responsible for damages for your injury, your medical bills, regular personal injury, but only if you can show that it's due to negligence, some type of defect, there's something falls that shouldn't, uneven floor, or a railway that gives way. There has to be some type of negligence, just like in driving a car, you rear end someone. And then you have to show that the property owner knew or should have known that the defect that caused the injury existed. Now, if the employer creates it, like someone's bussing tables and they spill water on the floor and then someone falls in it, well, then the employer, the person's worker created the condition, so it's a case. But if you're at a grocery store and a customer drops a grape on the ground and then a customer falls on it 2 seconds later, it's not practical to have people monitoring every ounce of the store to make sure there's no debris.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a case because they didn't have time to have notice of the condition or knew or should have known that it existed. So that's kind of what you have to prove. Most people don't know that. They just think, oh, I fell at the store, they have to pay.
They have to pay, and they don't. So if you do fall at the store or you fall at somebody's house or you get hurt or whatever happens, is there anything that you should do while you're still there if you think you have a case?
Well, most people are very embarrassed.
Yeah.
So they just want to get out of there.
Anytime you fall,
We've all experienced. You just want to get out of there, no matter whether you're hurt or not. So if it's not so serious that you need an ambulance, you want to get out. But you want to do is you want to make sure you go to the customer service desk and report what happened and where. Many of the stores have cameras. So you want to contact someone because then you want that tape preserved because that'll show what happened. And you need to know what you fell on.
Okay.
A lot of people come in and say, I fell, I was at this place. What caused you to fall?
You need to know that.
I have no idea, I just fell. Well, the law requires you to say what the defect is.
Okay.
So when you fall, you're not sitting there analyzing, boy, that's Tide dish soap on the ground or something like that. But you need to kind of be aware, or that's why you want to talk to someone right away or report it so it's investigated. Because you go home, you go to the doctor later, if there is something there, it's been cleaned up, who knows what happened. So that's what I would recommend.
We do have a question here. Medical bills that I incurred from my accident are killing my credit. Is there anything I can do?
Right, and this would be one that I got a message from a client recently, and it's common. In workers' compensation, if you have a medical bill that isn't being paid, one of the positive law developments was we can send a letter to the provider, say, hey, this case is pending. It prevents it from going to collections. The provider has to wait until the case is over. In a personal injury case, we're a fault state. I've talked about this before. The provider does not have to wait for the money. That's why you want to utilize your group insurance or med pay. But if you don't have those, or you have balanced bills and they're not getting paid, the provider can request payment. They can even sue you for collections. So I recommend you at least work out a payment plan to protect your credit. At the end of the case, if you prevail, you'll get the money back for it, but they don't have to wait. And we know how important your credit rating is now.
Yeah. Here's a question. Somebody that was injured in Georgia or had an accident in Georgia, do they have to get a Georgia attorney?
No. I handle some cases. If there's going to be a lawsuit filed, you're going to have to get an attorney from out of state because I'm not licensed to practice, let's say, in Georgia.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I can't handle it pre-suit with the insurance company. If something more serious, you're going to get local counsel. Sometimes we can file a motion with the court if we're sponsored by someone locally to, on a particular case, get admitted for doing that case. So you can start here. If you need someone down there, a lawyer here can help you find someone to handle the case.
Okay. Question from Mr. Peterson. Friend in a trucking accident in Missouri. Do I need a Missouri attorney? So I guess we just kind of answered that.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's somebody that has a question about invasion of privacy. The employer is using their Facebook in a case. Is that something that they can do?
Certainly.
Yeah, because it's public,
It's
right?
public. I mean, you need to, like, this is getting a little in the weeds.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to do this because I try to avoid it.
Yeah.
But being tagged in photos, so you don't even do it, but you can get into your settings and say you have to permit tagging. But social media, and it works both ways. I want to get the social media for someone who caused an accident. They might have put something about it, or text messaging. So there's very few things that are privileged. Statements to your insurance company, statements to your lawyer, statements to your spouse. Those are privileged communications. Things you print on Facebook, because if you file suit, I get requests from the other attorneys that say, we want to know what social media you use. We want any postings you've ever made about your injuries or this accident.
You got to be careful with Facebook. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
And then in
any social media, you just have to be
And
careful.
then in work comp, they know what someone's doing. They can track your activity level. So you just need to dial it back. It doesn't mean be a prisoner, but just use some common sense.
Luke has a question. His daughter was walking home, bit by a dog that was not on a leash. How much liability does the dog owner have?
Okay. Now, the leash part does not matter anymore.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to show negligence. You can charge negligence if a leash should have been used, but Illinois has what's called the Animal Control Act. And in those situations, dogs, any type of animal, doesn't have to, it could be a bird, doesn't matter what it is. Any injury caused by an animal is strict liability as long as you didn't provoke the dog or the animal. You were in a place you were lawfully supposed to be. That's the general. So as long as you're not trespassing, you know, I'm not sitting here yanking on the dog's ear wondering now why he bit me.
They were in an alley. So.
Yeah, so I mean, anywhere on someone's property, in the street. I've had cases where a dog runs out and it jumps on a bike and they get hurt doing that. It's any type of attack, strict liability for your injuries unless you're provoking the dog. Or these are the two main ones, or trespassing or somewhere you're not supposed to be, you know.
All right, good. You're always, you know everything. I feel like everything I throw your way, you know the answer to. All right, so great questions, and we are going to take more of your questions with Chris Doscotch coming back to Ask the Attorney.
Last year, nearly 9 million motorcycle enthusiasts took to our highways, and more people are riding each year. In 2015, the number of motorcycle fatalities in Illinois unfortunately increased by nearly 24%. Motorcyclists have the same rights as all motorists. Most motorcycle accidents occur because other drivers don't see motorcycles. We can reduce fatalities and injuries by sharing the road and seeing motorcycles.
Don't wait until a tragedy to find out your insurance coverage was not enough. Contact your local insurance agent to review your policies and determine if a serious accident happens, are you underinsured.
I'm attorney Chris Doscotch. The right insurance coverage and the right attorney can affect the outcome of your case and your life. My ability to advocate for you can be limited if you do not have enough insurance coverage.
Brought to you by the law offices of Chris Doscotch.
Welcome back to Ask the Attorney. I'm Stacey Campbell. I am here with Chris Doscotch. You handle workers' comp cases, wrongful death. We were just talking about premises liability. We had lots of questions about that. And I know you're big on making sure that people have enough auto insurance so that their lives are not in financial ruin should they get in an accident. And so one of the types of insurance that you recommend people get is underinsured motorist insurance.
Correct.
I'm looking at my notes to make sure I say it correctly. What is that?
On your policy, it'll say underinsured or UIM. And when you buy underinsured motorist coverage, you're buying coverage in excess of what the driver that caused the accident had. So if they had a policy of $25,000 and you buy 100, you're getting extra coverage because your case is only, like the graphics talking about, as good as the coverage you have.
Yeah.
So no matter how bad you're injured, it doesn't matter if you only have $20,000 in coverage and you can't recover anything. So underinsured motorist is something you can buy from your own company to give you extra protection in case the person that caused the accident doesn't have enough insurance to cover your injury. So I think, you know, we had talked beforehand. So if the driver that caused the accident had a $50,000 policy and you have a $50,000 policy, people think, wow, well, I got $100,000. You add the two together.
That's not the way it works.
Well, not in Illinois and about 9 other states. They offset them. So it's 50 minus 50, so you have 0. Now, if the other driver has 50,000 and you have 100,000 in underinsured, the way it works is you take their 50 off of your 100.
So then you have 50.
You have $50,000 in additional coverage. And so
that seems extremely confusing.
It is real. That's why I keep doing it, because people think they have this coverage and you just add it on. They don't understand what it is. And it's one of the cheapest coverages you can buy.
Yeah.
So you want to buy insurance to protect yourself from complete catastrophic disaster.
Yeah.
So buy extra underinsured and raise your, if cost is an issue, and raise your collision or your comprehensive deductible too, because you can absorb a $250 or an extra $500 for property damage a lot better than you can if you're not working for 9 months. The other person only had $20,000 in coverage and you have a lot of future medical. You know, so that's where I recommend, if you have a limited budget for your insurance, put more into the underinsured to protect yourself than in those collision and comprehensive situations.
That's really good advice. We do have a question. How long does it take for an auto accident to settle? It's probably different for every case.
Could be hours would be the shortest.
Wow, okay.
To the average would be, it would depend on how injured you are and when you recover from the doctor. So what I use is the time frame. After a person's released from the doctor, by the time we get the records and do the evaluation, that should be a 3-month to 5-month process. If it doesn't get resolved then and you file suit, you know, the average in Peoria is probably from the day suit is filed till there's a jury trial, could be 2 to 3 years. Obviously, depending on how complicated your case is, who your lawyer is. Can make a difference on how fast the case moves. So it just varies depending on the severity of the injury, the complexity of the case, and just the court, you know, scheduling.
Okay. Now, we're going to switch gears and talk about something that's near and dear to your heart in just a second, but I want people to be able to get a hold of you. So your number, 681-9770. You're in North Knoxville. You also have an office in Lewiston that people can call you to, and as we've talked many, many times, there's never a cost to call you to talk about a case, never a cost to come in and talk to you in your office about the case. So if you do think you have a case, you want to call Chris Doscotch at 681-9770, or in Lewiston, 547-5201. And joining us now is Gary Hall, who is a veteran, and Chris has requested that we talk about this awesome dinner that's coming up. It is called the Patriot Day Dinner, and it's on September 11th, 9/11. So, Chris, tell us about it. You and Gary tell us all about it.
Well, if I can introduce Gary as a friend of mine.
Okay.
UAW.
974.
You're not disputing that, I hope. But,
Nope.
no,
He's not.
but honestly, he's about as nice as can be, Stacy, in terms of supporting veterans, of whether it's been the memorial at the courthouse, the honor flight, Gold Star. I mean, Gary is at the forefront since he's been
so, Gary,
retired.
you've planned this dinner for a long time. Where is it? When is it? Tell us a little bit about it.
First of all, this is my second year being in charge of it, It was originally, the idea was came up with by
Jim Arrowwood.
Jim Arrowwood and John Schellenberg. Thank you. Get a little nervous on TV.
That's all right.
And it was originally thought of to just for UAW veterans. But right away we decided that why don't we just do it for all veterans?
It benefits all veterans, yeah.
Benefits all veterans. It doesn't make any difference whether you're UAW, any veterans that work here. More than welcome to come.
Chris wanted to talk about it because you would like to see more people come to this dinner and have more people support so that more veterans can get support. So it's on September 11th. It's from 5 to 7. Where is it?
UAW 974, just up the road from you guys.
Oh, and how much does it cost?
It's free.
It's free? So just donations?
Well, if you want to donate, that's fine.
Okay.
We also have, we're going to have a few raffles and
Dog tags.
Yeah, the guy from the Vet Center is going to be making dog tags if you want to have dog tags made up. You know, I've got 2 sets of dog tags. When I went in, they gave me a number. When I got into AIT, that's when they changed it to going from the number they gave you to using your Social Security number as your dog tag number.
Okay.
So we have that. The Honor Flight people will be there.
Oh, that's great.
There'll be a guy talking about Vietnam things.
Okay.
His name's Omar Peak. He's very up on all the different veterans, Vietnam veterans things. See, the reason I'm doing this is, well, obviously to help veterans out, but I'm gonna, when I came back from Vietnam, they weren't very happy to see us.
Yeah.
And when I landed in Peoria, Peoria is a unique town. I landed in Peoria, went to the bar, of course I won't say, and I got a beer, PBR of course.
You were telling us this story. We don't have that much time, so you got to condense it.
Okay, well anyway, they wouldn't let me buy a beer.
Okay, but then you were telling stories and then they did, because they liked you.
The more stories I told, the more beer I got.
It's the Patriot Day dinner on September 11th. This has been Ask the Attorney. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.